everybody, it's Safi and Marco. Dish out on the movies. Well, we've had a little, how many days have we gone without a review? Just one?
One.
Because Marco got sick from eating something that wasn't good, I guess.
Safi, why don't you explain what you did?
I didn't do anything. I bought some cereal. Should I say which kind?
You bought some Lucky Charms.
And
it had the flap, the top was open.
Which I did not notice.
It wasn't all the way open, but I just thought maybe Safi opened it while carrying it or something. Like, I didn't think that it was tampered with before she got it. And so it was open. And it seemed like the plastic baggie on the inside was weird too. Like, it was, I don't know, it just seemed like it was weird. Like, there was something off about it. And I opened it up, and I poured the cereal, and I took 2 bites. I took 1 bite, and I was like, ooh, there's something off about this. And then I took a second bite to see, like, to confirm if it really was gross, and it was bad, so I threw it out. And then it gave me horrible food poisoning for the rest of the day.
He was sicker than a dog.
And Safi bared the blame.
Right.
She had to recite her Children of the Corn line over and over. I will not betray he who walks behind the rose ever again. She had to say that over and over. So
just kidding.
That's why we didn't do any video yesterday. Like, it would have been impossible.
No, we just couldn't. Well, he was too sick. I thought I was going to have to take him to the hospital.
No, Safi.
Which is just down the street, fortunately. But he just was quiet, and he didn't eat anything else except for some crackers and chicken noodle soup, just like a little bit, and that was it. And I think that helped because he's not sick now. He was really bad. So anyway, let's move on. Just wanted to let you know why we didn't do a video. And today we're doing the 7th Children of the Corn movie, and it's called Children of the Corn Revelation, which I didn't look up yet. If you're familiar with the Bible, Revelation, I don't know really what it means in terms of the movie. A revelation, just in general terms, is something that's discovered, revealed to somebody who's never knew it before. And that could apply to this story. So that's the only thing. And in terms of a biblical thing, I don't think, from what I know, I don't think it applies at all. So.
Okay, so Safi, let's get into the movie.
Okay,
now, this movie, it was very bad.
The only recognizable person in here was Michael Ironside, and he played a priest, and he's not going to be a familiar name to many people.
Yes, he is, Safi.
Well, anyway, he doesn't have that big of a part. He plays a priest, and he really.
Well, let's get into the movie. Let's get into the movie, Safi.
Okay.
So this movie.
What little of it?
This movie is very bad.
It's very simple.
Safi, it was really funny because she tried to, she did the typical Safi thing, where she said, "It wasn't terrible. It wasn't really bad. It was okay."
It was simple, but there just wasn't much to it at all.
And then you watch it and you're like,
it was like a blip.
Well, it was like, let's put the minimum amount of effort into everything.
Yeah.
Minimum effort into acting, minimum effort into directing, minimum effort into effects, into kills, into the music was terrible, the setting, like every single thing in the whole movie is just how little do we have to do for this to pass as a movie.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with a lot of these early 2000s horror movies, or just, I would say horror movies in general, is that you have a lot of them that it feels like the people who make them, they don't really want to push the boundaries or make anything interesting. They just want to put as little effort into what they're doing as possible. And there's just so much bad stuff in the movie. It was terrible. It was boring. It was so boring that like I was trying not to fall asleep the whole time.
Well, I kept at least looking and see how much time was left, because it was like an hour and 23 minutes, something like that, which is almost about the time of all of the movies we've watched so far. They've been at like an hour and a half, or a little over an hour and a half, but this was an hour and 23 minutes. So, but not much anything happens. And Marco didn't watch it first because, like I said, he was sicker than a dog. He didn't feel like doing anything because he was just so miserable. And I just said it was just really simple, because there just wasn't much to it. It's about this young girl who seems to have a career of being a writer for something in a major city, and she is always in touch with her grandma, who lives in Nebraska, and I think they talk every night or something. You know, it's constant being in touch, and all of a sudden she stopped hearing from her, and she got really worried, and so she decided to take a leave of absence and go out to the middle of nowhere, which is always this, almost always with Children of the Corn, it's in the middle of nowhere, and she drives up to this old abandoned, it looked like a factory, and on the sign it said that it was being closed and they were going to tear it down. And apparently, and I didn't even know this, I thought at first I thought her grandma was the only person who was living in the building. And apparently it was like an apartment house. And all these people who needed, I guess, a cheap apartment, cheap place to live, because they weren't exactly very well off, were living in these rooms, and they weren't bad. I don't think they were very bad rooms. I thought they were pretty good, and their stunning view was of the cornfield that surrounded them. So go ahead, Marco.
Oh. Well, the movie, it started and it just kept going and going and going, and it just wouldn't end.
It ended finally.
It ended at the last part, and it was just like, I don't know what this is. Like, this movie is terrible. It's just, I don't know what they were thinking. Like, this is not a Children of the Corn movie at all. It's like a apartment
Living
ghost
in the middle of nowhere.
Ghost apartment movie.
Yeah, it was a haunted.
It was just like every single element of the movie they put the minimum effort into,
Yeah.
and then that lowest standard of like, okay, we had a couple of kills in the movie, there's hardly any blood, and they all look stupid and ridiculous, but at least we had a couple of kills. And it's like, it's just not enough. Like, this whole movie, the tagline that you should put on top of it, it's just not enough. And I don't care if that sounds mean or critical or anything, but, you know, we watch so many of these movies, and it's just honestly like, fuck off. Like, it's just a complete piece of trash. It's not the worst. Like, I had a hard time of where to rank this movie, because it is so boring that part 6 is... it's hard. Isn't it hard to rank these movies, Safi? Because they're just so bad.
Yeah.
Like, it is worse than part 5. We could agree on that, right? Because at least part 5 had a little bit more go on, right?
Yeah, it did.
Face the
This
camera.
It did. And this was just basically this girl was looking for a grandma, and her grandma wasn't there.
And she's in her apartment building, and just
there's a whole cast of characters who live in the building.
They're all boring people. They're all just stereotypes.
And you can hear when we say it's haunted, you can hear the voices of children laughing. And then there's two kids, a boy and a girl, very young, I'd say, 8 or 9 and 10, something like that. They keep showing up. They even came into there's like and I don't know how far away this store is. There's a little quickie store, like a 7-Eleven or something like that, convenience store.
I would say,
close.
Safi.
They keep showing up in there.
I would say, Safi,
everywhere.
that being the clerk at that convenience store would be more entertaining than watching this movie. Because, well, there's this part in the movie that's really, really stupid and bizarre, where the children of the corn come into the convenience store, and the main girl, let's just call her final girl, because that's what she was. And we'll get into that, too.
There isn't that big of a cast, so...
She's in the convenience store, and the kids go up to this arcade machine, and she buys them a game or two, and they're just, like, playing the game, and it's like, ooh, isn't this scary? Because they're really getting into the game. And it's like,
it's
ugh.
a gun, and you kill zombies or something.
Ugh. It just...
And they
like,
would say,
why?
kill.
Just like, what were they doing when they made this movie? Like, why would they do that and think that that's good?
And then all of a sudden, on all of the doors of the residence, there was like a veteran, a military veteran. There was a pole dancer or something like that. And what else? A guy who was, I don't even know how to describe him. He was a very funny, kind of weak person.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the fact that this main girl, she was like a final girl, typical caricature. And why do we say that? Well, she's boring. I mean, I thought she was the best actress in the movie. Like, there's not really any good acting in the whole movie. Even Michael Ironside, he's only in the movie for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, he doesn't have a very big part at all.
I would say that's really unfortunate, because he would have been really good if he was in a whole movie.
I don't understand why he was in the movie.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know what he was
really
supposed
weird.
to be. I thought he was part of the Children of the Corn group, but apparently he wasn't.
I thought he was some sort of like Van Helsing character or something.
I don't know. I don't know. He was dressed as a priest, and we got to see him up close because he paid a visit to the building inside, and the girl had a talk with him. And so they showed him, and so I thought that's who it was. And
even that was boring.
And
just so boring. And the main girl, though, first off, she's really boring, just like the whole movie and everything about it. And well, it's just so bad. It's like you put on a movie and it's supposed to entertain you, and you just come out feeling like you want to go to sleep for the rest of the night. Like, that's just not good at all. That's a marker of bad quality. And she's really boring in terms of she has the typical thing where there's the stoner guy, and he offers her drugs, and he offers her a bong, and I guess it has some illegal drugs in it, and she refuses to take it. And then there's this other girl in the apartment building, and she's a stripper. And, obviously, the final girl, she's not a stripper. And, she's not, like, wild like that. She's not promiscuous like that. and so she's obviously morally superior to her.
And they showed
And so
the I don't know what she was.
Oh,
Marco says she was a stripper.
we'll talk
pole
about the
dancer, what-
stripper. We'll talk about her. She has a very hilariously bad part in the movie that we'll talk about in detail. And so it's like, this is just typical. The typical final girl, and then she has a love interest. He's a detective. He's boring as hell. And she agrees to go on a date with him. And it's just, she is so boring. She's just the most, like, this movie's just so boring. It's like, who would watch this movie for fun? Like, we watched this movie because we had to review it. We didn't watch it for fun. Because there wasn't any fun that we had in the whole movie.
No. And
Unless you had some fun, Safi.
there was also a guy who was on the first floor, and I thought he was the caretaker of the building.
The caretaker?
Well, you know, they have a, what do you call it, I can't think of what the name of it, superintendent.
The caretaker?
Yeah, and you know, like if anybody needed something fixed, that he would go fix it.
Oh, why
And
didn't
they
they
would
have
live on the ground floor.
Why didn't they have a caretaker for the movie?
I don't know, but anyway, he had heard all these noises, voices, laughing, playing, whatever, and he had a gun, and he was running around
Oh, that guy.
with the gun pointed in the air, and like he was just about ready to shoot, and he told the girl to get out of there.
Ugh.
In fact, the girl was warned. There was a didn't she have a sign in her room? It said, "Go home." Her name is Jamie. Go home, Jamie. And she was there looking for her grandmother, and her grandmother was nowhere to be found. And so that's why she was sticking around, because she was hoping to find clues as to what happened to her grandmother. That's why they would show all this other things going on, and it seemed like things were ramping up. I mean,
Ramping up?
Meaning the voices were getting stronger and longer, and there were more kids. They would add a kid like to a scene. So they go to the next scene, there'd be like 3 kids, not just 2. Then the next scene there'd be 4 kids.
Ugh.
And then they put this corn wreath, it was really nice. It was really cute. Something that you'd find like at a fall festival, you know, like at a craft booth or something. They have these little wreaths, very small, skinny wreaths made out of corn stalks.
Safi, I'd rather make corn wreaths for 10 hours than watch this movie again.
Well, they started putting one on every door. There wasn't one on the girl's door because she really doesn't live there. But every single person who lived in the building, they put a wreath on. Well, guess what that meant? That they were going to get killed.
Well, Safi, they had to do something. That was like the lowest effort that they could do. Like, oh look, there's a corn wreath, and
so every single person with that corn thing, they murdered.
And let's talk about what happened. The grandma, she disappeared, but she got killed, I guess. There's this really hilariously bad part where the final girl is asleep or something, and then in the dream, the grandma steps in front of a train, and she gets run over by a train.
So we don't know if that's what really happened or not.
And then the corn grew on top of her or something. It was just so dumb. It was so bad. It was so like, ugh.
Well, what the story was, Marco should tell it because I didn't even get
What
that.
story?
The story is that the grandma was a member. This is what we thought. If you wanted to explain the word, the movie has, Children of the Corn, Revelation, and we're trying to figure out what does that mean. Revelation of what? And with the revelation, we think was that the grandma was an original kid, a member of the Children of the Corn.
Yeah, the grandma was a part of the Corn, and she got away when the Children of the Corn committed a mass suicide by burning themselves. And I thought it was really hilarious because, there could have been a good story there of where this adult who was formerly Children of the Corn, they go back there for some reason, and then they go missing. And it could have been interesting, but it was just so terribly done. And then you have the fact that the kids in this movie, they're not even kids, they're ghosts.
Yeah, all of them are ghosts. But they're killing all the residents who are living and well.
They're really bad. And there's just so many bad, funny moments. Like, there's this one part where the stoner gets killed, obviously, because he does drugs. And then the kids, the final girl, she knocks on his door, and she says, "Your steak is burning. It's burning." And it's just like so queer and stupid, like it just, I don't know, it was so goofy and bad. And then the highlight terrible part of the movie, which was so bad that I don't know, at this point I was almost ready to like turn it off and then just pretend like I watched it, because it was just so bad that it was like suffering the whole movie. And this part where the stripper comes home and she gets naked, and then she gets in the bathtub.
Makes herself a bubble bath.
She takes a bath.
Well, she's had a 14-hour work day, so she is tired.
And she's, Safi, she's promiscuous, so that means she's bad. And so then a Children of the Corn pops up in her bathroom, and he stares at her, and then he drops some corn kernels in the bathtub. And then all of a sudden, a corn stalk comes up out of the water, and she like wrestles around with the corn stalk, and the corn stalk kills her somehow.
Oh, it drowns her.
And it's like, oh God, why did they do that? It's so bad. Like, what were they thinking?
And then the veteran was in a wheelchair. And he was yelling and complaining at everybody all the time. And she was struggling, and she lived next door to the veteran.
Yeah, his character was stereotypical. He's like
he was yelling.
The older disabled person who yells.
And he called her terrible names. She was fighting for her life.
He's like, "Shut up, whore."
And then
stop making so much noise, whore.
They chase him. He ends up being chased down the hall, and they grab his wheelchair and they throw him off. They're on an upper floor, so they throw him off the balcony, and so he gets killed.
Oh yeah, I forgot. It was so bad.
So you got the stoner. You have the girl who either strips or pole dances or whatever.
It's the same thing.
Then you have the veteran, then you have the guy on the first floor who's like the super, and I don't exactly know what they did to him, but they
Oh, he had a heart attack.
Oh, yeah.
He had some sort of heart medication. He had a heart attack because he saw the ghosts. And okay, so a big part of why this movie was bad was the music and the overall, like, everything, actually. But the music was really generic.
I don't know what it was. I can't even remember it.
Well, there were so many sounds in the movie, like stock sounds that you would hear in like a early 2000s reality show. Like, I don't even know how to replicate it because they're just so like unnatural and stupid. But when you hear those sounds, you would be able to recognize them, and it's like, oh yeah, those are those stock sounds that anyone can use, and they're just really cheap sounding, and they're just like really like boring, and just everything about this movie is just boring. And like, why is that though? Like, because to me, I think boring movies are worse than bad movies. Like, because boring bad movies, like it's painful to watch them, but with bad movies, at least, you know, I guess you're able to watch them. Like Part 2, I could watch Part 2 again over this, even though it's bad. But this movie, I never watched part 7 again.
No, there's just nothing to it. And the guy who manages the store that I talked about, he gets killed too.
And he gets killed off screen. This fake looking chopped off head kill.
For what? I don't know. I don't understand. Nothing. He didn't live there. He was way off in another building, a store.
What ends up happening at the end, because I swear, like, this movie isn't even worth talking about, like, in terms of, in comparison to all the other movies we've reviewed in the series. When it gets to the end, she goes back in the apartment and confronts all the ghosts of the Corn children, and we finally meet the main one. And the main kid, I guess he's supposed to be Isaac stand-in for this movie, and he's really weird looking. He looks like a, I don't know, like Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and then he has the voice of an adult because he's supposed to be possessed. And
he who walks behind the rose.
He was just really bad and really generic and boring, and I did not take him seriously. They did this weird thing where they made him look like an adult, kind of.
But he was a kid. You
like
could tell in his face. He had a baby face.
It was weird. It was very weird.
It was like he was 7 years old, but they made him look like he was, I don't know, 18 at least. And he wasn't 18. You could tell by his face. But they put him in this body. I don't know. They did some kind of special effects, and then they did that low voice, which of course he was mouthing and somebody else was saying it, whatever was being said.
And she does this whole trick where she takes out a lighter that she was given by the detective earlier in the movie, and then she lights one of the corn wreaths on fire and throws it in the gas stove and blows up the apartment building and runs outside with the detective, and they run off together. The end. And it's like,
just for the heck of it, the priest told her that her grandma had died.
Safi,
so she knew
he was making an educated guess.
Well, I'm sure everybody already knew that, but I mean,
yeah, it's like, come on.
She had been the whole thing. I mean, the whole time, and she got the detective.
I mean, the grandma
to do looking and all that.
This is the type of intelligence that the people who wrote the movie, you know, the grandma, she had sex because she had the children, so she has to die. You know, that's like these movies, these types of horror movies. It's like there are these stupid rules.
But
where
that doesn't make sense.
If you have sex, you die, or if you do drugs, you die.
But the problem
and so
is,
the final girl is the only person who is pure, and which
they have. I know I don't want mean to sound crude, but all the children were born out of their parents having sex.
Oh, but the parents waited until they were married, hopefully.
Oh.
So,
okay.
What I think is stupid, what I think is really stupid, and you guys would probably agree with this too, is that the villains of these movies are supposed to be these uptight, like overly religious characters in a cult, and you'd think that they would want to break the rules of traditional horror conventions in order to make the story interesting and go against these characters. Like, if you remember in the first movie, the two main characters, they had sex before the movie started. Because in the first scene, they're, like, naked in the motel room together. And,
they're
like,
married, huh?
They didn't care at all, though. Like, but what I'm saying is, this whole thing of, like, if you make out with somebody, you get killed, or if you smoke a joint, you get killed. They shouldn't do that for Children of the Corn movies, because it completely goes against the the message of the movie. The villains of the movie like it almost like glorifies the villains of the movie, that these people, these certain types of people, are the ones who get killed.
Yeah, they're righteous.
Yeah, like if you showed this movie to like a I don't know, like a weirdo, like maybe Safi, do you know of any weirdos?
No, like a kid.
A kid?
A kid who didn't know anything, you know.
No, I mean like a religious weirdo, like somebody who's really like wacky and retarded.
I don't know. You're not supposed to say that anymore.
Who cares?
Anyway.
And so, if you showed them this movie, they would be like cheering that all these people got killed, and it's like, that's kind of like what this movie's supposed to be fighting against. Like, this movie isn't supposed to be in support of, like, oh, if you smoke a joint, you're a evil person. Like, it's like, who even thinks like that anymore, except for if you're a...
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
And
I don't see how they could, because there's medically approved marijuana, and a lot of people who are suffering with pain or whatever, they get prescribed that and it helps them. So,
well, in general, it seems like, wouldn't you agree, it completely goes against the movie?
well, it's a movie of contradictions. Even though it's little, it's not a very big movie. It doesn't last very long. It's a very simplistic plot. But it's just, because the reason why is just because they're not making any effort.
Yeah.
And if they were,
no effort,
then maybe they would be thinking more about what they were doing and realize it wasn't working. Because really nothing much worked. Like I said, it was so simple. This girl goes to look for her grandma, and she meets this detective, and he's actually hardly in the movie.
And he's another boring character.
And she's mainly in the movie, and well, she asked for his help on finding her too. Like, she is a missing person. She filed a missing persons report.
He's just there to be her love interest.
Yeah.
And I guess the only good thing was there was this part where he saw some brown spots on the wallpaper, and he thought that it was blood. And I thought that that was good, at least, because in a lot of these movies, you know, people pretend like blood is red even after like months or years.
Which is ridiculous.
And it actually, it turns brown over time. And so...
That's oxidation.
I thought at least they had that little detail of like, oh, at least they know a little bit about something. Because you see that a lot.
Okay, I think we're done. There's nothing more to say about the movie.
No. What's your food rating, Safi?
My food rating is polenta. Just plain old polenta. And polenta is like a corn. You make it with corn, and it's like this sauce. It's real thick. And supposedly you have it with like Italian food, like, I don't know, like an Italian sauce, you know, with meat maybe, and like a spaghetti sauce. And you might have noodles, and it's really gross. I've made it once, and it's really plain, and it's just corn and something else. It's like, if you've ever made cornbread, you know, the batter for cornbread, that's what it looks like. Only you cook it, and it's like a oatmeal or a hot cereal, or grits. You know what grits are. It's just like that, and it's boring. I never eat it. It's gross. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know what you could do to make it better. If you paired it with anything, it wouldn't taste good with anything, and that's what this movie is. You know, it's just too simple, and they didn't, like Marco said, in any area of making a movie. You go for the music, you go from the actors to the, you know, what happens, the storyline, the lines, everything is...
low effort.
Low effort, and that's polenta. I mean, I don't know, if somebody out there has polenta on a regular basis and you do something good with it, let me know. I'm just curious, because I mean, I've never, in fact, we've watched a lot of cooking shows, and I don't think I've seen, I may have seen something once where they did something with polenta, but it wasn't that great. So let me know if you do something really good with polenta. Let me know. I'm just curious. Maybe I don't know. I don't see how I could try it because I did not care for it. I thought it was boring and gross and didn't taste like anything. So go ahead, Marco. What's your review?
Oh, well,
Puke?
no. Well, this movie reminded me a lot of McDonald's, and
I don't agree with that.
it's a lot like McDonald's. In particular, typically at McDonald's, if I got a milkshake, it would have to be chocolate or strawberry, or hopefully Shamrock.
Yeah.
I think Shamrock is the best.
Very sweet though.
And then strawberry, then chocolate, and well, there was this one time where I was like, I need to complete the collection, or I need to complete the milkshake taste test by having a vanilla shake, because then I can say, this is how I rank them. This is the definitive milkshake ranking.
You know how millennials love to rank things. Oh.
And so I got a vanilla milkshake from McDonald's, and it was just so bland. It was so bland. It was so boring, and it was so artificial, and it was so bad, and it was just like, ugh, like, why did I get this? I could have gotten chocolate. I could have gotten strawberry. I could have gotten a McFlurry. I could have gotten Shamrock. I could have gotten anything, but I got a vanilla milkshake, and then they even put the whipped cream on top, so you have white on top of white. And it just looks so bad, and that's what this movie is. It is like a vanilla milkshake from McDonald's.
Oh.
What?
That's funny.
What?
I don't
Why
think,
is
do
it
they
fun?
even offer vanilla milkshakes anymore?
Yes, Safi, they have always done that. They always will. You have to have vanilla if you want to be taken seriously.
Yeah, right.
Right, Safi?
Yeah, sure.
I wouldn't take McDonald's seriously if they didn't have vanilla milkshake.
Well,
So that's what I give this movie. It is just the most bland, boring movie. It was so boring it even made our review boring.
yeah.
Especially because of Safi
Yeah.
and her like,
Well,
that's what you sound like.
Sorry.
Is that what you aspire to be as a
No, I'm
reviewer?
just tired, okay? I've had a long day.
Well, I was tired after just watching the movie and having explosive diarrhea yesterday.
Well, that's gross. Okay, well, I think we should wrap it up. So anyway, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to become one of our subscribers, we welcome you with open arms because we welcome commentary. And if you've seen the movie, let us know what you thought about it. If you've ever made polenta or you know of a good polenta dish, let me know about it.
And I do like vanilla shakes. It's just not McDonald's vanilla shake. So, because Wendy's, their vanilla frosty is really good, and I actually think it's better than the chocolate.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.